In my previous video, I demonstrated how to work the first row of single crochet into the foundation chain, working through the back bumps. And in this video, I'm going to be showing how to work row number 2. So I have my hook here at the end of the row, and I've laid my work down here on the table. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to pretend like this is a page of a book. Here where my hook is, where this yellow stitch marker is, that would be considered the binding. The orange stitch marker is going to be the edge of the page. So I'm going to pick this up and I'm physically going to turn it over and bring it to the opposite side. And now my hook and the yellow stitch marker are now at the beginning of the row. So I'm going to move my working yarn here so it's a little easier to see. Right, so I'll pick up my work in my hands. I'm going to just get my yarn positioned in my left hand. And what I'll do first is I'm actually going to take this stitch marker out so that I can more easily see the stitch. And I'll just set this here. So what I'm looking at now is these V's that I'm showing you here. This is the top of the stitches of the tops of the single crochets of the previous row. Because we're looking at the wrong side of the work, you'll see that the actual structure of it looks a little bit different. You have these little V's that kind of they're like little legs that want to kind of, as though they're little running legs with a little bump on top. That denotes the wrong side of the work. The wrong side of the work tends to want to roll away from you. So you really do need to make sure that you're pinching this as tight as firmly pinching this, and then bringing the top of the fabric towards you so that you actually can see these little V's more easily. So now that you have everything in position, before you begin this row number 2 of single crochets, you will want to create a turning chain. And this is simply a chain that is just like those that we created when we made the foundation chain. So now what I have here is I have the loop that's on my hook, and I have this first V, which is considered the turning chain. And I'll take this out and I'll do it again. So let's, this is in position as though I've just turned my work. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And what's left to me here now is this chain, which is going to be the turning chain. For single crochet, I only need one of these turning chains. And once I've made the turning chain, now I'm ready to proceed with row number 2. So in the previous row, in row number 1, we were working through the back bump of the foundation chain. In row number 2, we're going to be working into the top of the single crochet. Now the single crochet is comprised of 2 parts. There's this part right here, which is called the front loop, and this part right here, which is called the back loop. I'm going to be inserting my hook underneath both the front loop and the back loop, like so. If I turn it to the side, you'll see that there's this space right here. It's kind of a gap, and that's where I'll be inserting the hook. This is a side view, and then here on the top, you'll see the front loop and the back loop, and I'll be inserting the hook underneath, like so. So now I'll take my hook in hand, and I'm going to insert underneath the front loop and the back loop. Now, once I've done that, it appears as though there are actually 3 loops on the hook, because you've got the loop that you began with, but you have the entire top of the single crochet that's comprised of the front loop and the back loop. Front loop being here and the back loop being there. You need to think of these as one unit. This is one stitch. Now I'm going to work the single crochet in the same fashion. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull up a loop through both the front and back loops, through the top of the stitch. I have 2 loops on the hook. Now I'm going to yarn over again, and I'll pull through 2. Now this now brings this new stitch right here into the beginning of the row. Right here is the top of the stitch. And what I'll do next is I'm going to take my locking stitch marker. I'm going to insert it underneath the front loop and the back loop, and then I'm going to close it. And so what this does is this ensures that I have correctly identified the first stitch of my row, and I won't confuse it in any way with the turning chain, or I won't inadvertently miss it. Okay, and so the next step then is to work into the top of each of the next stitches of this row, all the way across to the end. And again, I will take my fingers, my thumb and my index finger, I'm going to pinch the top of my fabric and turn it towards me so that I make sure to see both of these V's. And I'm going to insert the hook underneath the front and the back loops. Again, it can be a little confusing at first, but once you are able to identify the parts, you'll see that you're doing this correctly. So this is the front loop, and that's the back loop. You're working under both of those. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2. Finding the V, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2. I'm going to feed out some more of the yarn here. Again, I'm going to pinch this and turn it towards myself so that I can clearly see the V. This is the top of the stitch. Now insert my hook underneath both of those loops, yarn over it, pull a loop of working yarn, yarn over again, and pull through 2. I'll do one more. Inserting, yarn over and pull a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. So now I can just take a look at my work from this that I've done for the second row, and I can see right here that I clearly have my first stitch marked. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, the loop on hook doesn't ever count. So I'm inserting, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over again and pull through 2. Again, these V's at the top of the fabric really want to roll away from you. That's why you want to make sure you're pinching them and turning them towards you so you don't inadvertently miss one of the loops of the stitch. Insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over again and pull through 2. Pinching towards me, inserting under both of the front and back loops, yarning over, pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2. And now continue in this fashion until I'm almost to the end. All right, so here I have, I'm looking at the very end of my second row here, and I have 1, 2, 3 more stitches left. I'm going to be working into those stitches to complete the second row. Insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over again and pull through 2. That's all right. So I've come to the very last stitch, and the reason I know it's the last stitch is because this was marked as the first stitch of the previous row, which becomes the last stitch of my second row. I'm going to remove the stitch marker and just set it aside for now. I'm going to insert into that last stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2. So now I have completed the second row, and I will just lay this here on the table, and I will straighten this out, give it a little tug to kind of even the stitches, and then I'll give just go ahead and count my stitches by looking at this. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. I have 20 stitches, so I started with 20 and I've ended with 20, which means that I have not inadvertently increased or decreased any stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and just use a yellow stitch marker to mark this last stitch. And I'll set my work down, and I'll repeat the process. I'm going to pretend as though this part of my work is the binding of a book, and the orange stitch marker is the edge of the page. I'm going to bring the orange stitch marker up and over to the opposite side. And this now will bring the yellow stitch marker to the beginning of the row. And my hook is in position here to begin. So I'll remove the stitch marker. And before I begin row number 3, I'm going to chain 1 to create my turning chain. And again, the turning chain gives the structure to the edges. I have my turning chain here, and now I'm prepared to work into this stitch right here. This is the first stitch of my new row, of row number 3. So I'll insert my hook under both the front and the back loop, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2. Now that I've made that next stitch, the first stitch of the third row, I'm going to go ahead and insert my stitch marker underneath the front loop and the back loop and close it up so that I have the first stitch clearly marked. And then I'll continue to work across row number 3, continue to work across to create row number 3. And this is the way that you'll continue to work for the rest of the square. So I have come to the end of the row, and I just want to make sure that I'm showing you here what I have left over, the last 2 stitches before the row is finished. I have this little V right here, And then I have the stitch that's marked. So I know that that is definitely last stitch. I'm going to work the second to last stitch. And now what I'll do is I'm going to remove this orange stitch marker. And now I can clearly see that this is the last stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2. Now I like to use the yellow stitch markers just since it's easy to insert and remove. And then what I'll do is take a quick count. So you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. I still have my 20 stitches, which is fantastic. And I've finished row 3. This does want to curl a little bit. There's nothing wrong at all with that. After you've finished your project and when you block your work, you'll find that it will lay much flatter. So just to get a better sense here of what we're looking at, we have these little V's right here that are the first row. The little V's that are facing downward like little legs with a bump on top, that's the next row. That's row 2. And then we have here the third row, which has got some little V's in that fashion. So we have rows 1, 2, and 3.